everybody, it's Tim with Broken Dice bringing you my little response to why I'm a wargamer. I am a wargamer. Hmm. The first question, thanks Jim for tagging me, by the way. Um, I'm sure a lot of guys have already answered this. I've watched a lot of these, and I really have kind of a little bit of a different story on how I got into it. I came along later to wargaming. I was introduced to it, gosh, I must have been almost 30 when a buddy of mine introduced me to it. Um, Earlier on in my childhood, I played a particular board game that was kind of American Civil War sort of a deal. I don't even know what family member owned it, whether I owned it or it was in our family or cousins or whatever. That was my first kind of venture into it. I had an interest in it, but I don't know, it just didn't stick. And then, obviously, being an American, if growing up as a young man, if it had a spherical object, it was a football, a baseball, a basketball. That occupied 90% of my time. Um, and I didn't come into any sort of other gaming or anything like that. Um, I remember I was dating this one girl one time, and she and a group of her friends played D&D. I played one time with it. Again, a little bit of an interest, but it wasn't anything that, you know how guys are. Girls interested in it will pick it up just to say we're interested in it, get closer to them. But I was a young man then. But it was different. Later on, a buddy of mine, we were training together in martial arts, believe it or not, and he and I hit it off. We both ex-military, and we just bash each other senseless most of the time. And he told me, he says, "There's a game for you. I want you to come over to my house." And I said, "Okay, all right." And I went over, and he had what I noticed most was the table. It was a company called, I think the name of it was GeoHex, and all the terrain pieces were these big foam hexagons, and you put them together in different ways, and the hills sat on them, and it was very elaborate as far as I was concerned at the time. This is back, it would have been early 90s, and I was kind of like, okay, interesting. Had a lot of models on the table, a lot of stuff going. He was introducing me to the game, and believe it or not, it was Warhammer Fantasy is what it was. And coming along later into wargaming, I kind of looked at it differently. I looked at it as a new thing instead of an extension of something else. Like a lot of guys have talked about how they were young men and they were introduced to 12, 13, 14 years old to wargaming in some variety, especially my European brethren. But for me, it wasn't the case. I came along later, so I kind of looked at it differently as more of an avenue or an exercises in problem solving. I got into the lores a little bit. I wasn't too much into that. I was more into the mechanics and how things worked, why you were doing certain things at certain times. But that was my first real experience with wargaming. It was Warhammer Fantasy. I think it was like third edition, late second, early third edition. I know I was into it at fourth. My first army was undead. The very first full wargaming army I had was undead. Yeah. I remember I bought it at a store. He was at college and he had sold it to the store, and I bought it from them. Boy, that's a long time ago. A lot of models under the bridge. Um, yeah, got started late, and like I said, I always looked at it a little bit differently as more problem-solving exercises than anything else. And then it began to change. Um, as I got into it, and I went through all the list building mania and all that kind of stuff, trying to find that great big list, that winning list. And then I decided that that wasn't, because you can only skew the math in these things so much. And if you buy the one particular army that's hot at the time, and you skew the math, it gives you a greater advantage some way, especially if you're fairly competent with the rules and how the game works and a few strategies within the game. What I began to do then was change up. Instead of saying, okay, let me try to win with this great big hard hitting list, it's like I started going the other way. Can I win with the lesser list, the one that no one takes, the one that says the odds are stacked against you for winning? That, I think that's when I really got into the idea of wargaming, and I did that for years. Oh gosh, the armies, the painting. Um, that's where I began to actually take a brush uh, and put it to a model. I actually have the very first unit that I personally ever painted. The army I bought, the undead army, was completely painted for the most part. I didn't have to get much for it. Um, but the first big army I began painting was my Empire army, which I purchased next. And I think I'm going to do a video on it one day about this unit that, and it still has that god awful paint I put on it. I had given this unit away and got it back, and it's in a closet, and I just, one day I'll bring it out. It's almost hilarious, comical. Um, that's how I got started in it. And it just it became cathartic, because the rest of my life was very stressful. My job's very stressful. Um, you know, training in martial arts is not a stress-free environment, and that is very physically demanding. So I needed, and my job's very physically demanding and stressful and stuff. So I needed something that was completely different, something that put me in a different mindset. And wargaming did that. It gave me a much more cerebral thing to sink my teeth into, which I had been missing since college. Um, I have a hoard of books on military history and stuff. And that probably was the real genesis, because in the back of some of the early Osprey books, they talked about how to wargame stuff. Um, so yeah, it's been a process for me to uh, work it into my life, but it's become more of a cathartic Zen pursuit. Okay, let's see if we can't move this thing along. I've been babbling. Um, why just start a channel? To connect. To connect with others of a like mind. And what I found out is towards the end of the Warhammer Fantasy thing and stuff, and 40K, I got into that a little bit too, um, was even Battletech. I even played some Battletech too. Uh, I really wanted to get into historical. That was my real passion, but since no one was doing that around here, you got to play what everybody else is playing for the most part. But my interest in historical gaming has never waned, And so starting the channel was the way to connect with others that have that same interest. And it kind of keeps me inspired, watching other people paint their work. Kind of it helps challenge me to get projects done, as you can see over that shoulder. Uh, my Iberian army that I've been working on this year. Got a lot more I want to get done with it, but I really love it. Really love it. And really, historical models are my favorite to paint right now. I'm working on some Perry miniatures for English Civil War. So right now, so um, let's. But to me, it's about connection. It's about learning. It's about expressing your ideas. This sort of a connection, so everybody gets to tell their story. Um, and last, advice to a newbie about starting a channel or getting into wargaming and then starting a channel, or to start a channel to start the conversation about getting into it. Just, I would say, get started, but start to hone your vision of what you want your channel to be. My channel, when I'm doing stuff, it's more about connection and communication and the sharing of ideas. I got less than 100 subscribers, and that's okay because most of my um, interest is in what people who have been doing this sort of thing longer than me and much better than I have up to this point can help teach me, and I can learn from watching their videos. And basically, I'm stealing every idea under the sun from everyone, and I'll watch everyone's videos. And what it has demonstrated is, gosh, there's so much I want to do in so little time. So little time. So you kind of got to focus a little bit. You can't. You could probably do a unit of every time period, but having an army from every time period, it would be. This is a lifetime pursuit, so don't beat yourself up about it at all. It's a it's a wonderful hobby. It can provide you with a lot of enjoyment, especially when you get with the right group of guys or girls nowadays, I guess. Um, and just keep going, just keep producing, and find your interest, and put it out there. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. Okay. Um, that'd be my only advice. Just find a thing first, and then just go with that, and then watch everybody else's stuff as you're sitting down painting, and you'll pick up gems of information, just one right after the other. Okay, who to tag? Uh, this is the hard one for me. Yeah, a guy I talk to a lot, and watch some of his videos all the time too. His name's Rusty. Helcarex is what his channel name is. Helcarexe. And I just call him Rusty. So, but that's the name of his channel. And I'm going to tag Dan Booman. That's Dan, Dan, and Booman, Buman. And then I'm going to throw one back across the ocean to Ralph Astley. I've been watching a lot of his stuff. He's been doing a lot of American Wild West gunfighter stuff. Got some buildings built and stuff. Pretty cool. I'd love to hear his story. Let him regale us with his history of his adventures in wargaming. That's all I've got. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their week. Stay safe, and you guys have been tagged. So I want to see a video. See ya.